The first Castlevania game was one of the first in its class to ooze atmospheric tension alongside marvelous adventure into one ghoulish package that was lacking in the landscape of gaming in the 1980s. This was a game that took its story and subject matter quite seriously. This wasn't your little brother's copy of Super Mario Bros. Thus, it wanted to horrify the player, not only with its boorish difficulty, but also in its quest to quite literally spook the player, depicting creature features of other mediums such as femur-checking skeletons, feral Medusa heads, Frankenstein and Igor, and fighting death himself. Oh, and of course the main event, Count Dracula. How could I forget? To drown the game in even more mystique, it's actually somewhat of a mystery who spearheaded that of Castlevania 1986, due to Japanese game dev naming conventions of pseudonyms being a norm in the 80s, to protect that company's talents from being scouted out by other rivaling companies. Castlevania, or Akumajō Dracula in Japan, was released on the Famicom disk system in 1986. It would eventually make its way to the States on the Nintendo Entertainment System in 1987. The moniker Castlevania would actually be conjured up by Konami of America, out of fear of it not selling that well due to potentially pearl-clutching reactions in the States, due to Akumajō Dracula being roughly translated into something akin to Dracula's Satanic Castle. And I bet my bottom dollar that if you were a kid in 1980s America bugging your mom to buy you Dracula's Satanic Castle, she would not only not buy that copy for you, but she would also send you to your room with a copy of the good word. Fortunately, we got the compact Castlevania, which rolls off the tongue ever so graciously. Saying Castlevania is the equivalent of that squeaky sound made when a surface gets to the point that it can no longer be any cleaner. It's not only audibly satisfying, the word looks damn clean in and of itself. It's so garish to the point that I can say its name wearing a straight face, and you would take me seriously. Despite how easily Konami could have exploited its potentially campy elements as such, Castlevania actually considers itself legitimate horror, and for its time, I'm sure some players picked up their controllers with trepidation when first booting up Castlevania for the Nintendo Entertainment System. The game opens up to our character Simon walking on the brinks of a seemingly haunted house, figure shrouded in darkness, surrounded by unearthly presence in the moon that you would have only materialized in your mind when envisioning a Hallows Eve night. Maybe we'd be better off if we had been predisposed to that sinister Japanese title. We wouldn't have bought it. Luckily though, when we make our way to the courtyard, Castlevania's signature groovy theme sets in, ensuring a wave of jovial relief. We then know we're in for a heck of a good time.
Let's get that Dracula son of a gun.
We were swayed to proclaim with vim. Castlevania's stellar soundtrack and jingles make you want to carry on, eminently with warmth in your chest, or even retry that stage the umpteenth time with earnestness and hopes of seeing what the next creature feature might be. Castlevania demands for your undivided attention, your precise placements, and your situational awareness of every pixel on the screen. It requires pinpoint accuracy amongst its pixel-perfect platforms and your evasive alertness amongst its many projectiles. This game expects that you eat bowls of nails for breakfast to pass more of its nail-biting stages. Keep in mind that around this early inception of gaming, developers still had the arcade cabinet mindset ingrained as muscle memory whenever they coded these early home console releases. So Castlevania for the NES still thinks it's a quarter-munching machine, wanting to sabotage the player every opportunity it gets. Conversely, it also gives the player more of a fighting chance through additional items. You primarily hit candlesticks to obtain these secondary items to aid you on your quest to slay the Count, alongside your coveted whip, appropriately named the Vampire Killer. Able to slay all creatures of the night that lie in wait without the need for an ounce of garlic or a morsel of silver. Castlevania is the only game in my collective memory that has heart items that don't replenish your actual life bar. The game is like,
this isn't the Legend of Dracula, bro.
Instead, hearts act as Simon's vigor gauge to actually hurl your secondary items across the pixelated screen. Whether that be catapulting, daggers, heavy axes, holy waters, or even the ability to freeze time, which I'm not sure why that requires any physicality at all. Poor economic handling of these hearts will deny you of these literal lifesavers, so best to break every object at an obsessive level. It's irksome that you have to utilize these items by pressing up on the D-pad in tandem with the action button, which not only feels unintuitive to do, but if handled with modern day analog controls, it's easy to accidentally misuse this input if not hyper aware. Heck, you can even misuse this input when using the D-pad when climbing stairs. Speaking of stairs, Castlevania's level design takes advantage of its vertical space just as much as it does with traditional horizontal level design structure. You actually feel like you're crescendoing through Dracula's labyrinth. Mega Man utilizes the same real estate, although it's punctuated by ladders scattered throughout its levels, making the world feel rather arbitrary. But Castlevania makes use of more fitting architecture to traverse its verticality in a more organic way. It also leaves the player in more vulnerable states when in use, so they act as more of a risk the game leaves up for the player's own accountability. Every level is calculated to be approached tactfully, and although it's not as masterfully designed as the titles that would soon overcome that original Castlevania for the NES, it still slaps ridiculously hard.